So I haven't been the nicest to myself the past couple days. I've been having some mean and critical thoughts about my body. So I decided to put a bikini on, a string bikini to be exact, and like, yeah, it worked. I feel hot. I feel sexy. I feel like a bad like it worked.
It worked because you reminded yourself that men want to sleep with you. You got a self-esteem boost, but it wasn't related to any achievement, any aspect of your personality. It wasn't because you reached some goal. You just put on a bikini, which for all practical purposes is just underwear, and then exposed your flesh, and then seeing all of that skin, you reminded yourself that men are still going to see you as an object of sexual desire, and that made you feel good about yourself. Now, I'm pretty sure that the point of this video is that she's overweight. That's why it's meant to be considered empowering, because it's like, hey, I have a body type that you don't normally see on magazines or on Instagram, but look, I can still put on a bikini, I can still feel sexy, like, that's me, this is empowering. There are lots of women who would celebrate her for that attitude, and probably lots of men too, but there's also going to be a lot of men who have a strong emotional reaction against this video. And it's not just because men don't enjoy seeing images of women who, you know, at this kind of weight level in bikinis. It's because her confidence that she has, despite her being overweight, highlights the discrepancy between women and men when it comes to self-esteem. Have you realized this yet? That in today's day and age, women have a massively inflated sense of self-worth, and men have a massively deflated sense of self-worth. We are out of touch with reality. Now, why is that? That's what I'm going to explain. But first, I'm going to quickly let you know that for the next 7 days, you have access to a special video exam that I have created. This one featuring the story from a woman. A woman wrote to me for relationship advice. She's struggling to feel attracted to her boyfriend. And in this video, we listen to her story. And then at various points, 10 times through the video, I'm going to stop and then I'm going to ask you questions, testing your knowledge of female psychology. After that, I give the full psychological explanation of what's going on, why it's occurring. And at the end of the video, you get a score out of 10. This is not content that's designed to be consumed passively. It requires your active participation. It's not for casual viewers. This is for serious learners. This video is just one part of a series of educational modules that I'm creating that are eventually going to form part of a paid product, but I've been releasing one per month as a special thank you to my patrons. And so if you want access to that, it's only going to be available for the next 7 days, but go and sign up to my Patreon now. It's a great time. It's the start of the month. If you've been thinking about signing up, I would definitely hop onto it right now. Okay, let's get back to the video. I've said that women have a massively inflated sense of their self-worth, and men have a deflated sense of their self-worth. But why? What is the explanation? Why is men's and women's self-esteem at so different places? Well, the answer has to do with the experiences that they're having in the modern dating market. In 1989, there were these researchers that performed a study where they got this really attractive man and this really attractive woman, and they got them to approach members of the opposite sex on university campuses and ask them one of 3 questions. Would you like to go on a date with me? Would you like to go back to my apartment with me? And would you like to have sex with me? And the results really highlight just how different the experiences of dating and relationships, particularly when it comes to short-term hookups, are for men and women. So when it comes to saying yes or no to the date, the answers were actually the same in this study. 50% of men and women both said yes to the date. But when the hot woman asked men, you know, would you like to come back to my apartment? 69% of men said yes. How many women said yes to the hot man asking them to come back to their apartment? 6%. 69 versus 6%. And the results for sex were even further afield. When the hot woman says, do you want to have sex with me? 75% of men said yes. How many women said yes to instant sex with a hot man? 0. This study has been replicated a number of times in lots of different countries, and the results are basically the same every single time. And they show that when it comes to casual sex, there is no gender equivalence whatsoever. Women are highly in demand. All men are basically customers for what she's selling. But when it comes to the opposite, men, as a casual hookup partner, they're pointless. They're easily replaced. Every woman knows this intuitively, that she has value as a short-term hookup partner, that men want her. I mean, but that's nothing to be proud of. It's not an achievement knowing that men want to sleep with you. But for women of low self-esteem, it is reassuring to them to know that should they ever need a self-esteem boost to feel better about themselves, they can always go on Tinder or go out to the local bar or nightclub and find some man to give them attention, to want to sleep with them that night. It reassures them because it's good to know that that option always exists. It's not exactly a pretty sight. It's hardly the trait of a high quality woman to simply use a bunch of thirsty men soaking up their attention to give yourself an ego boost. It's very unattractive quality, but it happens a lot. It's actually one of the primary motivations why women go onto dating apps like Tinder. They're not actually looking for a partner. They're not looking for a boyfriend. Sometimes they're not even looking for a casual hookup. They just like the feeling of men messaging them. But women are really foolish if they think that their sexual market value as it relates to casual hookups has any relation to their worth as a person. And if they think that it does, they're in for a really rude shock in their later years. Men want to sleep with you. I'll grant you that. But the truth of it is that that means nothing. I mean, perhaps this is a little bit sexist to say, sexist against men, but men have depressingly low standards when it comes to the women that they'll sleep with. Some guys, not all, but some guys have disgustingly low standards, like with who they sleep with. They're totally indiscriminate. Have you seen that video I made on the special appeal that slutty women seem to have for men? Got to check that one out. I mean, one of the things that I'm always trying to do on this channel is encourage men to raise their standards, to value themselves, to value their sexuality more, and not just to give it away to any random woman. But my larger point is that the fact that men want to sleep with you is not an achievement. It doesn't make you special. It's not worth anything. It doesn't mean anything. A woman can be overweight. She can have a nasty personality, she can be dumb, she can not have achieved anything in her life, and there will still be thirsty men willing to simp over her. But that has nothing to do with you. That doesn't mean that you're special. It's just a reflection of how brutal the dating market is for men, that there are guys pushed to that kind of level of desperation. They're that lonely. And so you've got these women thinking, oh, look at how many men want to be with me. Look at how much attention I've got. I'm such a special person. I'm amazing. I must have a really high worth as an individual. No, that's not what that means. You're completely out of touch with reality. And men, you see, have the opposite problem. While women's sense of self-worth is being inflated because of how easy the dating market is, because of how bad and difficult the dating market is for men, they have a deflated sense of their self-worth. Imagine you've got some young kid straight out of high school, and he's great, he's nice, he's likable, he's smart, he's ambitious, like he's clearly going places in his life, but he's just not had much success with women so far. Maybe he never learned those social skills, he hasn't really learned how to flirt, or maybe all the girls his age are busy dating older men. Whatever it is, he's not having much success in the dating market. Does that mean that he's not worth anything as an individual? Of course not. Sexual market value and self-esteem are not the same thing, and to extrapolate data from one and apply it to the other leads to a very dangerous deviation from reality. Women who have too much undeserved success in the dating market become cocky and overly confident, and that's not good. Whereas men who, despite their qualities that might be admirable and attractive in the long term, are not experiencing any success right now in the dating market, they become overly depressed and they lose their confidence, they lose their ambition, and that's not good. Let me say it again so it really sinks in. Self-esteem and sexual market value are not the same thing. Imagine how ridiculous it would be if your grandfather, who's lived an amazing life, achieved lots of things, he's been married for 50 years, imagine if he based his self-esteem based on his sexual market value. No one wants to sleep with him. He's old. But thank God his self-esteem is not based on that. It's robust enough to recognize that his value as a person is not measured by whether or not women want to hook up with him. You need to be the same way. You can't be feeling bad about yourself simply because women don't want to sleep with you. Have you seen the kinds of men that women are going for these days? Do you want to be one of those guys? I mean, you can. It's not actually that difficult to sleep with lots of women. You just gotta lower your standards. I mean, I don't know why you'd want to do that. You'd be replacing social feedback as the primary source of your self-esteem as opposed to your own inner conscience. But it's not even going to work because the kinds of women that you're going to be attracting aren't the sort of women whose opinions you'd respect. So you've got to progress beyond this. You've got to divorce your self-esteem from the success that you're having in the dating market. However, there's a big however here. it can be possible to overcorrect, and that's also dangerous. I really hope that people haven't clicked out of the video because they need to hear the next part of this message. This part's really important. In the West, we are very individualistic, and that can be problematic. You know, if you're just like, I only listen to myself, I ignore what other people think, you know, I ignore all the haters, you know, I'm overweight, but I'm going to put on this bikini and it doesn't matter what people say, I feel amazing. I mean, that kind of self-possessed confidence, I mean, it's impressive in one sense. It can be positive, and I can understand that's one of the merits of individualism, but the thing is that not all social feedback is corrupted data. Like, take that bikini woman from the video, okay? She's probably got people in her comment section right now saying, yes, you're doing amazing, you look fantastic, I support you. And that's the social feedback she's getting right now. But I guess, guarantee, if she was to start a diet and exercise trend and she was to post like weekly updates and she's looking better every single week, she'd also find people encouraging her. You look so good. You look even prettier. You look better than you did last week. Keep going. And so in that instance, you've got two different points of data. Some are supportive of the way that you are and some are supportive of change, you know? Well, which data is worth listening to? What data is actually meaningful and which part has been corrupted? So you've got two different data points and they're both saying different things, but it's reasonably clear that the people who are saying you look better, you know, you look healthier, more attractive after losing that weight, they're giving you social feedback, but it's based on truth. And so that's really valuable. You would be foolish to ignore it. So social feedback isn't automatically a bad thing. You need to take it on board sometimes. It's a nuanced topic. I made a whole Patreon video about the degree to which you should be listening to social feedback as a man. So you can see it's dangerous to completely ignore all social feedback, because if you take it to the extreme, then suddenly you get to the point where you're imagining that anybody who has any opinion or any comment about you and how you live is just being a hater. They're just trying to control you. And if you're a woman, it's very easy to imagine they're all just being sexist. This is the patriarchy trying to control me. I'm a woman, and anybody who tells me to be thin, to exercise, to eat healthy, anyone who tells me to be nice to other people, to try and achieve things in my life, you know, they're just haters. They're being sexist. They're trying to control me. I'll do whatever I want. I'll eat whatever I want. I'll treat other people like shit, but that's me. You know, that's my female empowerment. Can you see how dangerous that is? At that point, the person has rejected social feedback to the point where they are completely detached from reality, and that's not good. And so you realize that social feedback can be a positive force in your life, you know, guiding you back towards the good. Remember that human beings evolved to be intensely social creatures. Our brains are hardwired specifically for social feedback. You can't just ignore that. So how do you reconcile these seemingly contradictory messages that I've been saying? You know, on the one hand, social feedback from the dating market is bad. You got to ignore that. On the other hand, don't dare ignore it because you'll lose touch with reality. Okay, here's the nuance. It's not important that every woman sees value in you, but it is extremely important that some women do. If those superficial women that you meet out in nightclubs aren't interested in you because you're not buying them free drinks, you're not acting like a cocky scumbag, you know, appealing to their one night stand kind of radar, it doesn't really mean that much if you're not getting any positive feedback from those girls. Who cares what they think? Because if you're meeting women through your social circle and there's a nice, sweet girl, and the more you've talked to her, she's like, wow, you're actually really interesting and special person. I'm so glad I got to spend time with you. I want to know more about you. At that point, you're good because that woman has got to know you at a deep level and she thinks that you're amazing. At that point, you should have high self-esteem. Enjoy it. You've earned it. Forget about all those random women in the club. Their opinion is meaningless. But if the pattern doesn't follow that way, and what I mean is that if the more women get to know you, the less they like you, then in that instance, you've got to listen to the social feedback, because the problem then isn't all women, it is you. If it's accurate to say that women find you likable when they first meet you, but the more they get to know your personality, the more they don't want to spend time with you, then that's a real problem. And you got to figure out what that is. Like, what is it? Are you cocky? Are you boring? Are you too shy? Are you too aggressive? The chance of every woman in the world has the wrong opinion about you, but you're actually correct, is really, really low. So you got to listen to some social feedback. You know, there's got to be some women who see value in you, or even just one. Once you've got that, once you've proved to yourself that there's something likable and valuable about yourself, then you can now safely ignore all of the opinions that gave you negative feedback from the past because they didn't know what they're talking about. Like, I might be overly cynical here, but I really don't think that the opinions of the majority of the people on this planet are actually worth listening to. There's a lot of intensely superficial people. There's a lot of dumb people. There's a lot of people with unresolved trauma, which of course they have my compassion, but they're not in the best place to actually judge the merits of other people. For those kind of people, whatever social feedback they're giving you, it's actually very sensible and rational to ignore it. So remember, if you have a deflated sense of self-worth at the moment, it's worth examining to what degree that belief has been formed based on your successes in the dating market. It could well be that you just don't fit that role of the kind of guy that women want to have one night stands with, but that's not really a mark against you. You should hopefully be moving towards finding a nice, sweet girl who does see value in you. And also, whatever confidence and bravado you're seeing from the women around you, just remember that a lot of that self-esteem might be based on the mere fact that they are receiving lots of attention from men because they're young at the moment. That's not going to last. Do not equate the sexual market value of a woman in her 20s with her actual worth as a person. They're very different things.